Hello, here we are back with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring through these videos his disillusionist philosophy, and as you know, in particular, the misalgic theory within the disillusionist approach, which is the theory that explains human behavior through aversion of suffering. Basically speaking, we claim that what we do is mostly a response to different types of suffering, and that there's little else in human behavior. So today, we are going to take advantage of the fact that everyone around the world, and especially in Argentina, where we are recording this video today, but in many countries across the world, everyone is discussing market economy. Everyone is discussing liberalism as opposed to socialism and the possibility of offer and demand regulating themselves without central authority, without mediations or controls. So we are going to take advantage of this topic, of this idea of a market economy with demand and offer, and even the idea of an invisible hand sort of ruling the market. We're going to take advantage of this to introduce a disillusionist perspective, to present what, from the misalgic theory's point of view, is the real driver behind every transaction, behind every market. So it's offer and demand economy, so to speak, but from a disillusionist point of view today.
Well, first of all, let me describe who are the actors of the market. Sufferers. Only entities that can suffer, that human beings, are part of the market. Why? Because every transaction, whatever it is a transaction that involves at least one suffering and one relief. Let me give you an example. Let's say the doctor tells me you have a heart condition. You need to buy yourself a walking machine. You know, I don't know, how do you call it? A machine that walks.
Exercise things. We are not experts in that.
Yes, it doesn't matter. But the thing that so you buy one of those, and here it's very interesting because you pay money to that is the result of your past sufferings. That's because you suffer to make money always. And with that suffering, you get something that it's a relief for your heart condition, but it's suffering in itself. Because the machine, you know, you have to walk it. That's not the nicest part. And even more than that, now you have to take care of the machine being in the right place, not if it needs repair. So there are several things for one relief. And this is something we will talk a bit later about the amount of sufferings and reliefs that you have. But basically, what I want to tell is that when you have when there is a market, the market is always about exchanging suffering for reliefs. Somebody's selling me a relief, so I pay with suffering. Every relief needs a suffering behind it. There are no reliefs that there are no sufferings involved. So this is the market. This is how the market is built. Now, when we talk about when we talk about suffering and relief, for every relief, and I give you an for every relief there is at least two suffering. One, the suffering that involves in me making the money, that with that money I will pay for the machine, in this case, and the problems that machine, the upkeep of it, the devaluation of it, because you know, today you buy a machine, you spend $500, and then when you want to sell it, it's $100. So you are going to lose money every day the machine is in your house. So those sufferings are inside there. They're intrinsic to the process. To make it clear, money represents a frozen. It's your frozen sweat. You know, when it says God says to Adam, you'll have to work and earn your bread with the sweat of your forehead. That's what, you know, that's the first mention. It was very clear from the beginning. Suffering, in fact, in that conversation in which God, that does not exist, of course, but the book says God tells Adam, he will suffer to be able to eat, because the Eden was a place with no sufferings. Eden was a place with no suffering, zero suffering. Now you will have to suffer, and she will have to suffer bearing their children. So look, it's very clear that the basis is this. And now how you do it? Well, now you have to trade. Now you have to exchange, to give sufferings in order to get a relief. Please, Producer, what do you think about it?
I like your clarification that there is no God, but still, the story in the book of Genesis paints a clear picture of the origin of this problem, right? In all probability, our ancestors, up to a not so distant point, lived like any other animal lives, which means they experience no suffering, which means they hunted or they grasped because it was their instinct to hunt and to grasp. And that's how they dealt with hunger without really suffering from it, without fearing or feeling anxiety. And at some point, our ancestors must have started experiencing suffering. And this type of transactions, longer and longer, right? Not only hunting to get meat, but hunting and collecting wood and cooking what one had hunted, and then sowing the fields and waiting for them to grow. And in that, the whole market starts to appear. I have to toil now to get relief for hunger in the distant future. So I guess, not sure about this, but maybe the story in the Genesis book came to explain this transition into suffering. Even if there was no God, no Garden of Eden, no original sin, still the logic, it's quite appealing. But in what you were saying before, I want to double click on the amount of suffering involved or surrounding every relief. The fact that even in a simple example, like exercise machines, there's the suffering involved in getting the money to buy them. There's the suffering involved in fearing health conditions that these machines come to prevent. There's the suffering involved in exercising once you have the machines, because acquisition is not enough here. And as you said, and I think this opens a whole new avenue of understanding all the sufferings associated with the future of the machine, maintenance, devaluation, the possibility of better and newer machines appear in the market right after we bought ours. So in the complexity of contemporary life, I think that for every relief, as you said, there are at least two sufferings, and maybe many more, right? Maybe it's a whole variety of possibilities for suffering.
Yes, but either one of the two happens. Either one of the two sides loses. That means one of them is really paying too much suffering for a relief, or somebody is giving you a relief for too little suffering. Or, which makes more sense, that you have, because if you say for every relief there is two sufferings, one of the two, either or the second one I'm going to give can happen together, or simply the amount of suffering, because suffering probably it can be quantified by the sufferer, because there is two ways of quantifying it. If you suffer, you know how much you suffer, and you give it a value. And then I look at you and I say, well, that wasn't that bad. You're saying too much, you're suffering too much, or I am a friend of you. No, you suffer a lot. You should get more. You know, when I was a lawyer, and somebody once told me, don't answer immediately for any advice they ask. Why? Because they think that it's not worth it because you answer it immediately. Say you take a week to answer. What was he saying? He was saying you have to look like you suffer enough for that money. Okay? So in a way, it's a little bit sadistic, a little bit, yes? You know, I'm giving money, you know, to somebody, and I want him to suffer for it. If it doesn't suffer for it, I don't like it. That's the problem also with crime. Somebody's stealing from you. There is this part. You suffer, and he didn't. And you didn't get any relief. This is stealing. Stealing is taking your suffering and not giving you relief. Stealing or fraud or anything else. That's what economic crime is about.
the idea that with suffering comes some sort of right? Some sort, you deserve it. If you get relief out of, the greater the suffering, better, I guess, out of suffering, then you deserve that relief. And if there was no suffering involved, we are not sure that you deserve it, right?
And again, nobody knows how much you suffer. Because you see, when I buy the machine, and let's go back to the machine, I am buying it because of a fear. I may never get a heart attack, with or without the machine. In fact, I could get the machine and the heart attack. And now, really, I mean, really. So part of the way in which we make decisions have to do with that. Really, what you're addressing is a fear. You are not addressing a heart attack. This is not a relief for a heart attack. This is a relief for your fear of a heart attack. It may also, they tell you, hey, you get two benefits. Yes, you get your fear assuaged and the benefit of not getting a heart attack, which of course nobody can guarantee. Again, the word guarantee has to do with that. It's all measured in, if there was a unit of suffering, you know, a sufferer, like a kilo, yes, or a pound or a meter, yes, you have a sufferer. Yes, it cost me 350 sufferers. What's the difference between a kilo and suffering? The basic one. Kilo is something you and I will weigh, will always be a kilo. My suffering, I am the only person in the world, in history, past and future, who has access, real-time access into my suffering. From then on, I can tell you I suffer. From then on, very, very common in the Orient, make efforts. You know, it's very common in China. You know, the baggage handlers, they make faces. Oh, it's so hard. Yes, because it's clear that the more he suffers, the more you have to pay him. Or at least he expects that. So I think the picture it's getting clearer, no?
Yeah. Of course, there's a display. There's a display of suffering, as there is a display of relief. But as you say, in reality, only each individual alone knows how much he has suffered and how much relief he's enjoying.
But we still have a system in which we say, okay, how many hours did you work for it? And you get paid for certain hours. There is an objectivity measure, but it's not a real one. It's the one that we all agree to suffer. Because in every negotiation, every time you reach a deal, you suffer. Why you suffer? Because you wanted something more and somebody. So then you get the relief of getting it. But it's always suffering and reliefs. There is nothing else. That's the market. That's what we do. That's every interaction between human beings. It's sufferers. It's about suffering and it's about relief in exchange for suffering.
Already in the conversation, the future as a whole dimension has crept in, because you introduce fear as the main suffering. I agree there. You introduce savings and money as a way of freezing, of stashing past sufferings to alleviate future sufferings. So I think there's a time dimension here that keeps expanding. And as you say, it's not only pull, but push. Sometimes I feel some sort of suffering and I ask for a relief I'm ready to pay for. Sometimes someone comes to me and calls my attention towards a suffering that I didn't know existed to sell a relief to me. So as the path gets longer and wider, there are more possibilities popping up, right?
Yes, and interesting you say, you know, he is suffering I didn't know about. No, it's enough to remind you. You know it's going to rain, yes? You know the winter comes and you may get snow. Are you prepared for snow? Do you have everything that you need for snow? Because we sell everything to deal with your snow in your driveway. and then there is the other side of it. I'm going for shopping because I'm bored, which is a suffering in itself. Yes. So I buy something, and again, the person gets, of course, relief because he sells me, and I get relief to my boredom. Of course, not before I give away my sufferings that have been frozen into money. Plato used to say, everything becomes gold, and gold becomes everything. that fungibility is what money is all about. Brilliant idea.
Yeah. Yeah, the interesting thing is not only it remains frozen, but it remains open-ended, right? That frozen suffering can be used for whatever the future brings. It's not predefined. Frozen food will just alleviate hunger in the future. It's good, but only hunger.
But then you have a problem, because money is subject to inflation, or to be stolen, yep, or to be or some things you did not expect. You wanted money to eventually buy a car or buy something, and suddenly you have to spend it on your mother-in-law.
Tragedy.
Tragedy. No, but what I'm trying to say is that you don't know what will happen. So what do you have to do now? Now they say, wait, your money may rot. That's what inflation does to money. So what do? Either you buy something, so that's it, or if you want to keep it, you have to invest it. And now comes a new suffering, the risk of losing it, part of it, all of it. So then there is different levels of people with different dispositions that may decide to gamble, to call it somehow, to invest in something that is less secure than something that is more secure. But always the chance that the bank you put the money in defaults or disappears or goes bankrupt, or there's an atomic bomb or whatever happens, that is always there. Even the bank is very safe, it's very sure, it's very everything. But you have, and now what you do is, your problem is that even keeping your suffering, it demands more suffering.
Yeah.
And again, remember, it's two things. One is the inflation you think there will be, and the other one is the actual inflation there was. The good thing about it is two things. One, the whole market, the Wall Street works on that basis. When you buy a stock, it's because you think it's going to go up. The problem is you buy it from somebody who thinks it's going to go down. One of them is going to suffer. One of them. Suffering may be even the number, because you bought the stock and you never sold it. So it says, oh, it went down 2%, 3%. This causes you suffering, not the stock. It's not you bought a pig and he got sick. Okay? It's different. But we leave it like it was a pig. And the other thing is, almost every suffering is really not real. It's really the way I see it afterwards. Let me give you an example. When I work all month, yes, I sleepwalk. I really don't. I don't suffer because I'm not awake really. It's like a guy. His job is trying mattresses and he sleeps. Of course, that job is. He doesn't suffer. So there is no suffering when you sleepwalk. Okay, but then if you lose that money of that sleepwalking time, if you lose it, you say, hey, I worked very hard for that money. No. Or the other way around, somebody will tell you, you did nothing. It's not important what you did. It's you did the sleepwalking. So when I call a plumber and he does his job, yes, and I say, wow, he gets in and he do this and with the water and the dirt and everything, you think he's suffering. He's not. He's sleepwalking. That's what he do for his job. And that's what's interesting, that for you, he's suffering, and for him, he's not.
That's starts to sound like a good deal, right? That you can get relief for your current suffering by giving people the results of toils in the past, but that were part of your habits, so you didn't suffer as you engage in them. And the people who provide the relief, they're not suffering either, because they themselves are running on habits alone. I just want to mention, before we are out of time today, one particular aspect that we have discussed in the past, that it's not exactly suffering or relief, but it's part of this market, which is pleasure. There is a demand and there is an offer of pleasure that takes part in this. Even if it's a small part, it's still a part of this market, right?
Every pleasure demands a suffering, like every relief demands a suffering. That means you suffer to get that pleasure, which is fine. But what's something special about it? When you are in the midst of pleasure, that I'm going to speak about the advantages of it, nothing will go inside and give you a fear. If you're having fear, you're not having pleasure. So fear is left out. So this pleasure has that tempesting, that vulnerability, sorry, the blindado.
It's I get it.
It's fortified.
Insulated.
Yes, you're insulated from that. But pleasure is short. Not only is short, if it repeats itself, it becomes a habit. The same way suffering, if it repeats itself, it becomes a habit. The same way, and it loses its impact immediately. So, and the best pleasures are the ones that take you by surprise. You can't arrange a surprise. That doesn't work. So pleasure is yes, and it's an exception, a small one, but it's there, of course.
And you say that while it lasts, it's like a field force. It's like an armor that protects you.
Like an armor. That's what I wanted to say.
Good. Of course, it's overrepresented, right? There's so much chatter about pleasure.
Of course, because it's nice to hear about. And people say, I had the pleasure to read aloud my daughter every night a book. He didn't have a pleasure, and that was a habit. Or it's a pleasure to meet you.
No.
And obviously, unless you met, I don't know, I cannot imagine the situation which it will be a pleasure to meet somebody. Sometimes it's a relief, but in general, it's nothing. It's an event, and in fact, probably you have to go there, dress yourself, blah blah blah, blah, talk, and this is part of the logosphere, the part when we talked about what we suffer and we express is not matched, cannot be matched, because any other person is a source for suffering or for relief. Any other person. So now I have to be able, not because, look, if tomorrow I anger somebody, make him anger, then emotions come into play, the price I will have to pay for something will be higher. So everybody is very nice to everybody when they think they will need them. Again, out of fear. So you say it's by pleasure and, lots of adjectives.
It's a pleasure to be back recording these videos. But we are out of time.
It's a relief. It's a really relief. No,
I hope you are relieved to hear that we are done for today. See you next time. Thank you very much, Mookie.
See you next time.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.